What does it mean to be worldly? What does it mean to remember God through the world, in the world? So in this session, we will continue to explore this more. And without further delay, I'll turn to Dr. Yamina to lead us in tonight's session. Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Yamina.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So, as Isra just reminded us, last week we reflected on the implications of Ayah, was it Ayah 11, the last Ayah of Surah Al-Jumu'a, Surah 62, and how it applies to us, not only in for the Friday, the sermon, the khutbah of the Friday prayer, but other situations. And we asked ourselves, why do we leave or postpone? For instance, we postpone the prayers, we said, or we postpone studying the meaning of the Quran, bearing in mind that we are aware that God is speaking to us in the Quran, and that at least theoretically we know that the most important message that is addressed to us is God's speech, God's message in the Quran, and yet we find ourselves prioritizing other activities, and in different passages of the Quran, the word trade, tijara, was used, and we mentioned how that does not necessarily only apply to commerce, but we can trade anything else. Anything we give and take is a kind of trading, and we can think about it as work, as making a living, as sometimes even like we'd say we're having friends or family visiting, and by visiting I mean not an urgency or something like that. We say like this is more important, as if we're having tea with them or whatever. So it's really an inner work. Everyone, an inner muhasaba. Everyone has to do it for themselves. So today, Isra was reminded me of a passage in the Risale Nur. It's the tafsir by Imam Nursi, rahimahullah. And it applies really to this situation, because we saw how in the Quran that is whatever is occupying us or preoccupying us, when we are not prioritizing the worshiping God or remembering God, is defined as lahu. Lahu could be, we talked about it, anything that actually distraction. But that's not how it seems to us. There is a part of us, whether we call it nafs or whatever, nafs in the sense of nafs that has not received yet the tarbiyah, that has not matured with iman yet, and nafs al-ammara or nafs al-lawama, that's still an infant in its closeness to God, in its awareness of its purpose, of our purpose in life. So that part of us, that self-identification that we have, in that part of us doesn't see it as we're busy with lahu. It is a distraction. It's something not very important. But we see it as very important. Actually, that's why we can justify our leaving prayer or other things and being busy with those things, or leaving prayer at the last minute because we're so busy. We have so many important things to do. And so I wanted to share the passage that Isra brought to my attention. I think it's in the 21st word. Is it, Isra?
Yes.
Because I just copy-pasted the passage you shared, and I didn't check where it was. But I think it's the 21st word.
Yes.
Most probably the first station, if I remember right.
Yes.
So he... there, Imam Nursi, rahimahullah, he says, if you say, so he's talking about to us, to anyone, these are questions that come to us in different ways, at different times. But the gist of it is this. If you say, what keeps me from the prayers, he's talking here about the salat, the 5 daily prayers, from prayers and worship and ibadah, and causes me to be lax, is not unnecessary things, but essential matters like earning a livelihood. So I think this does sound very familiar to us, because it says like it's not lahu, it's not something distraction and amusement, and no, it's something very essential. We're making a livelihood. Then my answer, so Imam Nursi is answering, he's saying, if you work for a daily, so he's giving a kind of a metaphor, something to make it, to attract our attention and make it easier for us to conceptualize what's going on. Because when we are coming from this level of awareness, I'm calling it awareness, but it's a low level of awareness as far as the truth is concerned, as far as imani awareness is true awareness is concerned, of who we are and what we're doing here in this life. So he's speaking at that level, and the metaphor is speaking at that level. So it may seem, how do you say, like a little bit simplistic, but when you look at the justification is also at that level. So it's slowly attracting our attention that something else is going on here. So he says, the answer is, if you work for a daily wage of 100 cents, so the whole day you're going to work for 100 cents, and someone comes to you and says, come and dig here for 10 minutes, and you will find a brilliant or an emerald or something worth $100, something worth much more than what you're working for. That's the important thing. Whether it's a cent or a dollar, the original is in another currency. So if you reply, no, I won't come because 10 cents will be cut from my wage, and my subsistence will be less. I can't live for 10 minutes to go and find that emerald or diamond or something, because I will lose from my wage. Of course, you can understand what a foolish pretext it would be. In just the same way, you work in this orchard of your livelihood. So it's not a real orchard and a garden, and then we say, I'm no gardener. No, here it's just a metaphor. Whatever you do is your orchard, the orchard of your livelihood. If you abandon the obligatory salat, the prayers, all the fruits of your effort will be restricted to only a worldly, unimportant, unproductive livelihood. Why is it unproductive? Because if it is cut off from the connection with our Rabb, with God, with the connection with Akhirah, and therefore with eternity, then it is unproductive because it's only, however big it cannot be abundant because it is temporary. But if you spend your rest if your rest period, like your rest period means like your break time on the prayers, which allow your spirit, your ruh to relax and heart to take a breather, you will discover two minds which are an important source both for a productive worldly livelihood and your livelihood and provisions of the hereafter. So you see that it's not dunya or akhirah. It is either dunya, but in the sense of temporary and transient, therefore unsatisfactory, unfulfilling, or dunya and therefore akhirah. If it is really if we look at the world and interact with the world for the purpose of its creation, that is connected to the purpose of our own creation, then we will find akhirah within the world, and so the result is going to be productive for our worldly livelihood as well as the hereafter, because they can't be truly fulfilling worldly in the sense of in this world, because worldly can mean something else. I mean in this world and in the next, here and now and forever. So the first mind, he says, through a sound intention. So intention means we're aware, because most of the time we're not aware of what we're doing. So the intention, you will receive a share of the praises and glorification offered by all the plants and trees, whatever flowering or fruit bearing that you grow in the garden. So here, remember, it's a metaphor. I may not be working in a garden, in an orchard. So whatever I am dealing with, everything in the heavens and the earth makes glorification, makes tasbihat. This is how Surah Al-Jumu'ah starts. It's one of the 7 musabbihat. And the tasbih ayat passages are not only restricted to those 7 surahs. They are called musabbihat because they start with the tasbih. But there are many ayats talking about how everything makes tasbih all the time. So he says, you will get a share of the tahmid and the praises and the glorification offered by the plant or whatever you deal with. The second mind, whatever is eaten of the garden's produce, whether by animals or humans, cattle or flies, buyers or thieves, it will become like a charity from you, a zakat from you, but on condition that you work in the name of the true provider. And we talked about the true provider in Surah Al-Jumu'ah last week. In ayah 11, it's ended with Wallahu khairul raziqeen. It says, what was the ayah? So in the beginning it said, when they see some trade, or lahu, some tijara or some lahu, or distraction, they rush towards it and leave you standing. Say, so this is what matters to us right now. قُلْ مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ مِنَ اللَّهْوِ وَمِنَ التِّجَارَةِ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. What is with God is better than distraction and trade, and God is the best provider. So here he says, on the condition that you are working in the name of the true provider. Bismillah, Bismil Razzaq. So if you think you are doing the work and then somehow unrelated, organically it is disconnected. I am a Muslim, therefore God will give me reward. Okay, it's good, but you're not making the connections. There can't be true iman there. There can't be tasdeeq there, confirming there. There can't be shahada. You are not witnessing anything. You're just hoping, claiming. It is not based on iman, on certainty, but on hope, which is okay in the beginning, but it doesn't take us very far if we content ourselves with it. With just at the beginning, we have an acceptance. We're not denying, but that's good to start with, but we can't stay there forever. We are supposed to confirm and witness and work and act in the name of God, in the name of the true provider. So he says, then everything will become almsgiving from you, but on the condition that you work in the name of the true provider and within the bounds of what he permits. You can't go and cheat and lie and because I'm making a living, but it's from God. If you know it's from God, then you know that you don't have to follow to go beyond the permissible. Because if I'm going beyond the permissible, it means I don't believe that it is God who is giving to me. It means underneath the implied belief is that I have to do everything to get it, otherwise I won't be able to get it. It won't come to me. That's why people, especially in trade, people can easily lie or do something or not tell you what's wrong with the product or something, because it seems if I tell you what's wrong, you won't buy it. But you say it and then you trust. If it's your risk, the person will still get it. If it's not, even if they buy it, it's cheating. So he says, and within the bounds of within the limits of what he permits, and see yourself as a distribution official giving his property to his creature. You are not the source of the wealth or the goodness. You are only an official distributing in the name of the provider. It's coming to me. I am getting a wage for myself and sharing and giving to the others. It's the fact that it's coming through me. It just means I'm a channel. It doesn't make me a source, as we often forget and live with the illusion that whatever is under my trust, we forget and we think it's mine to do whatever I want with it, and our connection with it, instead of making us closer to God and more grateful, it may make us get away from God because we get more attached to the things themselves. And even if we're grateful, our gratitudes can be diverted to the thing themselves and not to the giver, to the provider, the true provider. And so then he says, so see what a great loss is made by one who abandons the salat, the prescribed prayers, what significant wealth he loses, and he's deprived of those two results that I just shared, which would otherwise cause him to work eagerly and ensure his morale is strong. Instead, he becomes bankrupt. I'll come back to work eagerly later, inshallah, when we get back to Surah Al-Jumu'ah. Even as he grows old, he may grow weary of gardening and lose interest in it, saying, what is it to me? I am anyway leaving this world. Why should I put up with this, with so much difficulty? He will sink into idleness. But for the believer, he says, I shall work harder at both worship and licit activities in order to send even more abundant light to my grave and procure more provision for my life in the hereafter. Because for the believer, whatever activities is going on in this world is an opportunity to get to know God, to make tasbih, and to get ready for the hereafter, as we are told in the hadith, الدنيا مزرعة الآخرة. This world, the life of this world is, mazra'a is a nursery, let's say, for the hereafter. This is where we sow the seeds and we get the crops, inshallah, in this world and mostly in the next, inshallah. So today I'll start with ayah 9. Let me stop here. Does it make sense to you? Do you relate to it in any ways, or do you have any question or any comments about this passage from the 21st word of Imam Nursi?
I don't see the rest. I'm on my phone. So Isra, it seems like you're talking. I'll get you to talk first and then I'll go.
Go ahead.
For me, it's like I really like it's difficult concept to focus on, like how there is barakah that changes everything, like that prayer is not taking away, but prayer is making everything work. It's like it's like the heavenly ingredient, the magical ingredient that makes, like, you know, that makes everything grow and everything work. And like if we can see it as, like, if we don't do it, it'll be the missing ingredient. Like, you know, it's a very stupid example, but salt, like, you know, if you cook without a little bit of salt, like it doesn't matter how much, you know, you cooked and how fresh the vegetables were, but it just needs you know, like few drops of salt to make the flavor come out.
So if you're a chef, you're a chef, you don't say, oh, I'm not going to waste time if you don't have salt at home. I'm not going to waste time getting the salt. What is salt? It's just something small.
And I need it in very little amounts. And so, but it brings the flavor of everything, brings the flavor of the food, it brings, and subhanAllah, like, you know, with the examples that you're bringing, like how salah brings the barakah of everything and gets you to taste, like, so you're working, but you're not tasting the work. It feels like work, but with the salah, then it feels like worship. It feels like an eternal, like, connection. The Prophet, you know, it still amazes me. I wish I would be at a point in my life where I would say, like, Ya Bilal, arihna bis-salah. Like, you know, I need the prayer now. I really need it because I have loads in my heart and I need to unload those troubles. And the only way to unload them to bring barakah is salah. So I like the imagery you gave. So jazakallah khair.
Actually, this 21st word is a tafsir on, or reflections on, the ayah إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا. Just came to my mind. So I think it's in Surah An-Nisa. Yes, Isra?
Thank you. Jazakallah khair. As you were explaining the passage, and by the way, the passage is posted on the chat box. If you haven't seen it, it's there as well. It fits so nicely with the Quranic passage we discussed last time, because one of the things that I had that came to me as we were discussing last time was, you know, what is my khutbah? You know, because in that hadith related to the surah, that verse was saying that, you know, they left the Prophet ﷺ standing in the khutbah, and I don't live in khutbah, so this has a symbolic meaning. What does it mean that if there is a lahwa or tijara, as the verse says, they leave the Prophet's standing? What is it that in our lives we do that? And in last discussion too, it came out that prayer is one places that we tend to do that. We either rush through the prayer, or we are in prayer, but our heart is somewhere else, our mind is somewhere else. So this metaphor, this example he gives, the very simple one in the beginning that says, you say, well, I'm really busy, and I'm not busy with entertainment. I'm really busy. I'm making a living, or I'm taking care of my family. Like, these are really essential things. Then it says, well, if you work for wages and you're making $10, and somebody says, just take 5 minutes and dig here, and you will get $1,000. Would you say, well, that means like $3 from my daily thing will be cut off because I will be spending that 5 minutes there, so I can't do that. Like, that would be ridiculous. So that really resonates. It's a very simple thing, but really resonated with me, because that's the kind of bargain that our ego proposes to us. Like, if you rush through this prayer, or you're in the prayer but you're somewhere else, as if you're saving time, but actually those moments where we think we're saving time is like leaving the Prophet standing when he's giving the khutbah.
And what's foolish is the bargain is not give your whole day to leave everything and come and dig for this precious stone. No, just 10 minutes each time, like 5 times a day, 10 minutes, for instance, in the case of the 5 daily prayers.
Mm-hmm.
So the argument of the self that is the deluded self, it doesn't stand
at all. Say the sermon, right? I mean, when the Prophet was standing for the sermon and giving the sermon, he didn't say nobody's going to go to caravan. We don't care about caravans. No, you can go after the prayer. Just like
it's not going to last forever.
Yeah. So it's a really good way of thinking about it. That when the ego comes up with these ideas, I'm short of time. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Wait a second. That 10 minutes is transformative. And why is it so transformative? Those two things are really are good incentives, I feel, because it's saying if we have the intention, then we can. Well, other things we do. This person was a gardener who asked the question, so Nursi gives the garden examples, and as you're saying, it's a symbol for us. I may not be a gardener, but I may be doing something in my home or outside home. And if I have an intention, sound intention, then whatever I'm helping, I am taking part in their glorifications, whether it's a plant or a tree, or if you're a doctor and you're helping human beings, their organs, tissues, everything is glorifying. So you take from that. And then the other thing is whatever is served by you, even if they are not aware. In this case, even if they are thieves that are stealing from the garden, still, even if they are not aware, whatever your results touch, you get a blessing from it, with the condition that you do it in the name of the Reza. So that's really interesting. But one can say, well, I have the intention and I'm working for humanity and I don't need to therefore do the prayers. No, like if you that's fooling yourself. How can you sustain your intention? How can you sustain your awareness of the true provider if you don't take the time to get breathing for your heart and spirit and surrender to your creator's call. So I really like it's very profound and really lines up with the verse, with the Quranic passage.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And the intention, he talks about intention then, is also very important, and very, very simple way of realizing what's going on there with the intention is when we are consciously intending something, then we are aware of it. But most of the time, we are aware that we are putting our attention on something intentionally. But most of the time, when we are in ghafla, and we talked about ghafla, I don't know, a few weeks before, I think, when we are in ghafla, it just because we didn't intend something, we are putting our attention on other things. We just are not aware of it. And whatever our attention, wherever we put our attention, then our perception, we start perceiving things accordingly. And so it is with time. So when we are just doing nothing and sitting and maybe with friends, whatever, 5 minutes passes, half an hour passes, an hour passes, and it seems like, oh, it was so short. We don't say, oh, like, but when it is, for instance, it is prayer time, or it is khutbah, or it is something, and our attention is not there. We have not renewed our intention to stay present with whatever we are busy with. Then we start finding ourselves getting impatient and saying, oh, this is really long, like as if it's taking so long. I have to be there, I have to do this, I have to do that. But in fact, it's not long. It's just, when you look at it, it's much shorter than, I mean, if it's half an hour, it's half an hour. Half an hour is not very long in the rest of our day. It just seems long when we have not made the intention to be present with that, for instance, whatever the worship is. And it doesn't work only for worship, it works for everything. For a student, for instance, being in class, if they don't like being in class or they don't like that particular class, then it seems like, oh, it's not ending at all. So this is the importance of intention. Whatever we need to be aware and consciously put our attention somewhere and intend whatever, to be present with whatever we do, and then our perception will change accordingly. It's like one example that I always give, if I take right now a small, for instance, my telephone, it's just a small thing. Even in this, in the room where I'm sitting now, it's a small thing, let alone in this city, in the world, in the universe, it's almost non-existent. But if I keep it very close to my eyes, then it becomes something central. I can't even see lots of things behind it. So when my perception of it is, how do you say, I don't get to see it within its environment, I cannot evaluate it properly because I am too much attached to it. That's here it's a physical distance, but in life it can be an emotional or a spiritual distance. And so when I keep it and see it for what it is, put it on the table and look at it, and I realize, yes, there is something there, but it's not as big as I was imagining it to be. So this intention is very important. It's like the Alia talked about the magic ingredient. Here it's the magic ingredients that transforms things. It's like alchemy, inshallah. So back to Surah Al-Jumu'ah, which is Surah 62. So last week we focused on the last ayah, 11, and I think we did mention 9 and 10. So 9 and 10 is what comes before 11. We are told, oh, you who have believed, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, when the call to prayer is made on the day of congregation. It says Yawm al-Jum'ah, which could be translated as the Friday, but literally it means the day of congregation. Hurry and strive towards the remembrance of God and leave off your trading. That is better for you if only you knew. إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. Then ayah 10 is done. When the prayer has ended, disperse in the land and seek out God's blessing. Remember God often so that you may prosper. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. So here Friday is named as Jumu'a. It's actually the day of, which day is it? The 5th day of the week. Is called Friday, is called the Jumu'a in Arabic. It's called actually the day of the gathering, after the gathering of people in that day to remember and worship God. Because remember, worship is at the center of this community, the Muslim community. And remember, and at the center of worship, salat is at the center. Salatu imaduddin. The salat is the pillar of religion. It is the pillar of the Muslims' life around which everything is supposed to revolve. And actually, if you just think of the 5 daily prayers, if you pray on time, you will find yourself, without realizing, arranging all your activities around time. You're traveling, you say, oh, what time? You always go and check the time for this prayer, that prayer. Will I have to pray on the way, or shall I pray and leave? And alhamdulillah. So it is a blessing because it's like the earth revolving around the sun. When something revolves at a certain speed, it has a momentum, it keeps it. It's like it creates a field of gravity. So that momentum and that gravity is the gravity that keeps us always revolving around the remembrance of God, around the sacred, around the divine in our life. And I think that's something very, very, something to be very grateful for, something very healing and helping us, because we tend to, otherwise, if we're left on our own, we won't have that momentum. Each time it takes a huge effort to go back. But if we, it's like being on track, like a train being on track. It's easy to move once we follow the routine of the 5 daily prayers. And we can call that, it's the barakah, because the benefits are not only physical, but there are myriads of different aspects of benefits, and not only looking to this world, but to the eternal hereafter. And in this ayah, we also understand that and also from other ayats, that the gist of the salat is dhikrullah, the remembrance of God. In Surah Al-Ankabut, which is Surah 29, ayah 45, it is an ayah that is repeated a lot. You hear it a lot, I don't know, in mosques, and it is a profound ayah where we are told, convey what you have been revealed, what has been revealed to you of the book, and keep up the prayer. For behold, it says, prayer restrains outrageous and unreasonable behavior, and remembrance of God is indeed greater, and God knows all what you are doing. So, inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar wa la dhikrullahi akbar. So prayer restrains from outrageous and unreasonable behavior. So it is protective. From one aspect, it is protective in the beginning, and afterwards, it's not only protective, it's also, it's like a growing fruit. There is a protective skin, but it's not only protection, but also nurturing. So it protects us from negativity, and it nurtures in us different virtues as well. And we are told, and remembrance of God is indeed greater. Why? Because if the prayer is not about remembering God, then that prayer won't fulfill its purpose, because it will be lacking of its spirit. It will be like a dead prayer, dead thing. And so in this, in ayah 9, we have the expression فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. In the beginning it says إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ. If you, when the call to prayer is made, then it says, then hurry and strive towards the remembrance of God. It doesn't say hurry and strive towards the salat. Here the sa'ya usually translated as hasten or hurry, but I added strive because sa'i is to move quickly. But sa'a ila or sa'a li something, li shay, to strive for, it is to aspire to something, to endeavor to achieve something. And here we have فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. So strive to the remembrance of God, but it has that connotation of hurrying, of striving, of it needs not only having the effort, but like take it quickly. And
hasten, as it says.
Yeah, mostly it's going to be hasten, but I added strive because of the ila.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. It's like in Arabic, it's like a little bit like in English also, phrasal verbs. You have to look at the prepositions that come after as well. And it has the meaning of hastening and hurrying as well. It gives the idea of this earnest striving for something. The hurrying there is like earnestly work for something, do something for it, prepare for it. And it can also imply that it's not so easy to leave off our trading. And that's why we need to be reminded, and we need to be reminded to strive to the remembrance of God. There is an effort to be made, and make it promptly, because if we start thinking about it, and shall I or shall I not, and postponing, then we are more likely to not do it. We lose our strength. It happens in all good things, not only in worship, in all good things, even in worldly sense. If you go and do it on the spot, it's easier. The more you postpone, the more we lose our strength. So in a sense, it seems like, especially in the beginning of the path, remembering God needs striving, it needs effort. And of course, the obvious fact also is that often we disregard, is that we need to strive to know God so that we can remember him, because he is talking about remembering God. And remembering, knowing and remembering God is the spirit of the salat, because during the salat, even fiqhan, the salat is not valid, the prayer is not valid if we don't feel in the presence of God when we are standing in the salat, when we are praying. And so I remember lots of people telling me, but I don't feel. What do you mean? I don't feel God. What does it mean? It just I have to pray because I'm afraid of going to hell, for instance. That person is saying that because that person never was introduced to how to know God. So knowing God remains as not denying his existence. But knowing God is not only not denying his existence, is not only there must be a God is good as well, but it's more than that. We need to know God as our Rabb, as our host, as our provider in this ayah, for instance. And the more we know him, the more we will experience his providing for us in our life, and the more we will know what it means to feel in the presence of God. And that feeling in the presence of God, that without which the prayer is not valid, is the remembrance of God. Each one of us will remember God at the level that they know him, which means that we need to be on a path of getting to know him, to know him as our provider, to know him as our Rabb, to know him with his beautiful names as he himself describes himself in the Quran, the so-called al-Asma al-Husna. So it says, hurry towards the remembrance of God and leave off your trading. Means leave any other activity and focus on the remembrance of God in your prayer, because sometimes, as it has been mentioned, we do go to the prayer, but we find ourselves during the prayer, we're still thinking about other things. I think the prayer is also, from another perspective, is also a good gauge. We can gauge how we're living, with what awareness we're living our life, what's the focus of our life, because when we stand, what comes to our mind? Whatever comes to our mind is telling us that's what really keeping us busy. And I remember times where it was not even something important that used to come to my mind. It was saying very silly things like, oh, is the fire on is the cooker on or off? Did I leave something on in the kitchen? Like all day it doesn't come, and I know it's not. And in the prayer, something like this come. And so it's an opportunity to, after the prayer, stop and make istighfar and say, what's going on? What am I busy with? That's why we are told in a hadith, salatu mi'raj al-mu'min. So the salat is the mi'raj, the ascension of the mu'min. It says mu'min, it means whatever our iman, it will show up in the salat. No one will see it from outside, it's for us. So it's a good opportunity to make istighfar and to make changes in our life, inshallah. So in the next ayah, in ayah 10, we told, then when the prayer has ended, this is very important, disperse in the land and seek out God's blessing. Remember God often so that you may prosper. فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ, and remember God, again it's dhikr, كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. So what do you understand from this ayah? What's the message of this ayah that you get? This is a question I'm asking. When people who don't talk much, when you hear this ayah saying, when the prayer has ended, so here it's talking about the Jumu'a prayer, but for us it could also be any other prayer. Disperse in the land, it means go back to your activities and seek out of God's blessing. Remember God often so that you may prosper. Anyone would like to share something? Okay, so it may seem like this is saying when the prayer ends, then people can go back, you can go back to your activities. And it is true, but is this only what the ayah is saying? we are told to disperse in the land and seek out God's blessing. And we are also told to remember God often so that we may prosper. لعلكم تفلحون. So it means the nature, or maybe I don't know, the goal of our activities has changed now. We are going out to our activities, but now whatever we are doing is itself a seeking out of God's blessings. It's not making a livelihood only or anymore. It's the same activity, but now something happened in the prayer. We stood in the presence of God, and this standing in the presence of God is going to ground our knowing God. It's going to ground our iman, our belief in God, and boost it and increase it. And so when we go back, the same activity we were doing, we thought we were making a livelihood. I'm working hard, I have to make money or whatever. It could be I'm making something else. It could be not money. Whatever your activity is, inshallah, I won't keep repeating this, but inshallah, do not misunderstand. If I'm talking about making money or making a livelihood, it doesn't mean it applies only for that. You can take that reasoning and apply it to any activity you're busy with. So now the same activity is a seeking out of God's blessings. And God's blessings applies to everything. You're seeking friendship is blessing. You're seeking wealth is blessing. You're sick and seeking health is seeking a blessing. Anything is seeking blessings. You have a garden and you're planting plants, you are seeking blessings, beauty and life and whatever your goal is. It's always it boils down to seeking out God's blessing. The important thing is that we are aware of it, and so we start, our action becomes a fi'li dua. You remember when we did when we talked about dua, prayers, praying to God, calling on to God, supplication. There is supplication with words and supplication with action. Our action is a kind of supplication if and when we are aware of it. So here, the seeking out of God's blessings is like a key sentence, because it requires a different perception, and it's also attracting our attention, teaching us, when our intention is to seek out God's blessings, then something inside us is going to change. We start perceiving the world in a different way, and our awareness is going to also increase, inshallah. So the seeking out God's blessings and then remembering God often. When we seek out God's blessing, then we will start remembering Him. Everything will be a means, every activity of ours will become a means of remembering Him. Whatever we seek, wherever we get it, and as we are seeking it, and as we are getting it and being grateful for it, the whole process, our whole life will be a means of remembering God often. And that is what leads to prosperity, we're told. And that's also very crucial, very important. I mean, why do most people strive for prosperity? And again, I don't mean prosperity only financial wealth and success, but prosperity in any kind of meaning. Even spiritual prosperity is included. And we are told prosperity what leads to prosperity is seeking out everything from God, because they are God's blessings, and therefore remembering God often in everything. And the word used is falah, لعلكم تفلحون. It's a verb. You are made to prosper. So that's what you wanted anyway when you were busy with your livelihood, when you left the Prophet standing, alayhi salatu wassalam, and you hurried to the caravan or whatever. Our excuse is prosperity. What it's saying, prosperity is here. So subhanallah, can you see the healing, the guidance, the rahmah in this message? We are not told to forget, like forget about your worldly activities and only pray and make dhikr. No, we're not told to forget about our aspirations to success and prosperity. No, instead, our need and aspiration is validated, and it's saying, okay, you want this, you want falah, you want prosperity, you want lasting. Actually, falah is more than just prosperity. And this is how you seek falah. This is how you seek lasting prosperity in this world and in the next. It is showing us the best way to attain and reach that prosperity and that success that most of us long for. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that healing? Isn't that very wise? Subhanallah. Isn't this a beautiful rahmah? So beautiful. Subhanallah. And now we can also understand why Friday is not a sacred day. Maybe you heard it. Lots of Muslim scholars will tell you Friday is not a sacred day in the sense of Sunday or other, I don't know, other
day. It's a sacred day, but it's not a rest day.
And well, it's not a sacred day in the sense that Sunday is a sacred day. Not only it's not a rest day.
It is a sacred day.
In other
Sabbath, you mean it's not a Sabbath?
No, not only that. Not only it's not a Sabbath, but in other religions you have a sacred day and sacred place and sacred. Now here, what came to my mind, for instance, the masjid. Masjid is the place of sajda. So, okay, the mosque is a place of sajda, but the whole universe is a place of sajda. And we are told that everything in the heavens and the earth prostrate to God, right? They all make sajda. So the whole universe is sacred in that sense, because everything is making sajda all the time. It's only human beings that sometimes make it and sometimes don't. So I'm saying sacred in that sense. I'm not saying it's not sacred. I'm saying it's not sacred in the sense of the others. Friday is sacred and all the other days are also sacred. Friday may have a special meaning like the Qibla. Wherever you turn, there is the face of God. But Allah said, you turn towards the Qibla, so we turn towards the Qibla. Not because Qibla is a special, the face of God is only in the Qibla, no, but because it represents, how do you say, a divine injunction. And that's why the mosque is not sacred in the sense as other temples, because Muslims, like for instance, during Eid, when the mosques are not enough, they go to the park and they pray. I don't know. I just wanted to emphasize that side of it, that everything is sacred in the sense that everything is from God and always connected to God. It's not only a particular place or a particular time. A particular place or particular time may have a particular significance because of something, but not in its being more sacred, let's say, or the only sacred, maybe is better. Does it make sense?
I think I need to think a bit more about it.
So yeah, so like what we're saying is like some of the examples that like Isra you shared before with your mother praying in the parking lot, like when the prayer time came, like the whole, you know, whatever she prays is her masjid, basically whatever she makes sujood is her masjid. And in that sense, with Friday, once the Friday prayer is done, that's the time that we come together, then like the whole of the rest of the day is again where we're still are connecting. Like, so Friday is a community event where we come together as a community, but the connection is a day-long connection. It's like what's interesting in the verse that you have, the ayah that you have shared, it's like the same ayah as Hajj. So like the ayah of Hajj is that once you're done with your Hajj, go back and keep remembering God more than you remember your parents. Like, you know, so again, so like Hajj is an intensified place to come together and remember God. But the whole idea is like to take this momentum, or to take this realization and move with it for the rest of the year. And with Jumu'ah is maybe to take this momentum and move with it for the rest of the week. So it's not just a one-time thing that we go and remember and forget. No, it's just like a momentum to keep going for the rest of the week. That's my understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to emphasize that just that not to confine sacredness to one place or one time or one only. I'm not saying they're not sacred. I'm saying they're not sacred like in the others, because in other understandings, it could be that there is a sacred and everything else is profane. No, actually, everything else is profane only when we are in ghafla. Everything is sacred in the sense that it is from God and it reminds us of God. Everywhere is a masjid, a place of prostration. In Surah Al-Hajj, for instance, we are told, ألم ترى أن الله يسجد له ما في السماوات من في السماوات ومن في الأرض. Have you not seen that everything that are in the heavens and that are on earth prostrate themselves before God? And then we are told وَالشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ وَالنُّجُومُ, the sun and the moon and the stars and the mountains and the trees and the animals and many human beings. Subhanallah. So everything is in a state of prostration, or in Surah Al-Nahl as well. Everything in the heavens and earth prostrate before God. Every animal that moves, or every being that moves, min dabatin, I don't know how to translate that. Every being that moves, and the angels, like from the smallest thing that moves to the angels, everything prostrates before God. So the whole universe in this, the perception of the believer, is a place of prostration. And that's why we pray everywhere. And we come all together, either in a mosque, or we can come actually anywhere, as long as we are all together at that particular designed time. What makes it's like the Qibla. It's because it has been designed, but it's an injunction, this time and this direction. And again, it's because of the connection of who is saying it. So that's what I had in mind when I talked about the sacredness. What is important in all this is not only the timing and the prioritizing, but also, or maybe more so, how we relate to what we do all day long outside the prayers, between the prayers. We are to leave everything and earnestly strive to the remembrance of God. And then it's like a cycle. We go back, and now we are not told to leave everything. We are told to almost like using, I don't know if it's the right expression, but embrace everything as a means, as a blessing of God, or embrace the blessings of God, because someone may take something like stealing is not a blessing of God, but we all deep down know what's going on. So not every activity is going to be seeking out the blessing of God. But it was leaving everything, now it's seeking everything as God's blessings. So it's the ayah is like building something a new, showing us, can you see that it has built in us something new? We're starting with just leave everything and come and remember God. And now it's saying, go out and now seek God's blessing in everything. Whatever you do, it is a seeking out of God's blessing. And remember God often. And this is how you are going to prosper. You know that prosperity you were looking for? This is how you will find it. So it is this awareness that prosperity is from God, as we are told in Ayah 11. Remember in Ayah 11 it was, Wallahu khairul raziqeen. This awareness of the connection of everything to God that makes everything and every day sacred, and not only the day of the weeks or one particular place, but everything in a sense is sacred in the sense that it is related to God, it is from God, it is a blessing from God, and it is a reminder from God, it is a messenger from God, it speaks about God, it displays and reflects the face of God, it reflects the beautiful names of God. Inshallah, that's what I had in mind. And after that, then comes the last ayah, which we started with last week. Yet, when they see some trade, after all this, after they see some trade or distraction, they rush towards it and leave you standing. Say that which is with God is far better than distraction and trade, and God is the best of providers. So God is the provider, the only provider, the best provider is, I think, here the most important realization. But so we are to realize that it is with God, what is with God is better than anything else. We're busy seeking. Why? Because God is the provider. So it's almost like you think after 9 and 10, we don't need 11. It's clear. But just in case we didn't get it, it says, and it's nice that it's now relating it directly to God, to a name of God. So we went out, we sought God's blessings, we remembered him a lot, and we And that's how we are going to find our prosperity. And then it says, if you still forget, then know that what is with God is far better than anything else. Why? Because he is the best provider. He is the only provider. Whatever you are seeking, you can only get it from him. If you're seeking it from anything else, you are deluded and deceiving yourself. So not only we're supposed to not forget that God is the source of all blessing, so we seek them from him, but we also need to remain mindful of God and remember him in all our activities. And how do we do that? The answer is in the first two ayat. The first ayah, actually it's maybe you can say in the first ayah. The first ayah of the surah is يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. Everything in the heavens and everything on earth makes tasbih to God, glorifies God, the sovereign, the holy, the almighty, the wise. Interestingly, usually it's 2 names of God, but here there are 4 names of God. And the next ayah is let me keep the next ayah for later. So in the first ayah, when we understand the first ayah, when we understand how everything, or that everything, how and therefore that everything is indeed glorifying God, then we can start practicing this ayah, and inshallah, that time we will be able to understand that what is from God is far better than any distraction or trade, because God is the only true provider. And I think that's important because we can't seek out God's blessings if we are not aware that everything is glorifying God. If it remains static, if it remains, I am here, there is something sitting out there, I take it, this is God's blessing. If I like it, it's God's blessing. If I don't like it, why did God give me this? Or why didn't he give me what I want? That kind of mechanical perception of the world, disconnected perception of the world, that not only we won't be able to see how everything is glorifying God, we won't be able to glorify God, and we won't be able to truly be grateful all the time, because then it will be, if I like it, I'm grateful, and then I am not directly, my gratitude to the thing does not take me to God. It's just my assumption about who I am, a Muslim, and that I have a God. I don't know who he is, but a God. Somehow there must be a God. I feel that. I know that there must be something, but I don't know exactly who he is. I don't know him as my Rabb. Then I am saying, he gave me this, so okay, thank you, God. I don't feel it in my heart. That's not gratitude to God. Here it's something much more organic. It is from the tasbih of things themselves that I find God, that I go beyond the things to the creator of the things. And when I find God, then my gratitude, doesn't go, my joy is not to the things themselves, but to God, to the source. That's how we are made. That's how we are created. It will go there. So it's not, there's no button that I push and then my heart changes from the world to God. No, the button is that awareness, when I witness the names of God in the creation, then my gratitude will be towards him. If I love beauty and I see that beauty belongs to him, then my love for beauty will be a love for God. Because I realize that plant, that beautiful, let's say it's a plant or a flower, is making tasbih. Just 2 weeks ago, so I had this like beautiful white flowers in the back garden, and then in the backyard, and now they are all yellow, dry, almost gone. Now you see only like some remnants, and soon even those remnants won't be there. And now there are still leaves, but even the leaves will also fall. So when there was nothing, and then suddenly it grew from the soil, something started growing, and then flowers started opening, and there was this beautiful little white flowers, and so pretty that it's not that I decided that they are pretty. No, I find myself attracted to them, and you go, it's like they are pulling you, something is pulling you and saying, come and admire me. And you go and admire and say, Subhanallah. Subhanallah means, where did this come from? It can't be, this thing can't be itself making itself, because it was not here. It is itself being made. Someone is making this, and he is making it beautiful. So the way it is being, the way it was not there, and it suddenly appeared, and then slowly the leaves started growing and the flowers started growing, all that is a tasbih. It is saying it can't be, these things can't be doing it. Someone is who is in control of the soil, of the plant's growth, of the air, of the water, everything that it needs, the sunlight, and therefore the rotation of the earth, the seasons, the sun in space, everything. Only someone who is in control of all that, of all the universe as it is, can sustain, can make and create and sustain this flower here before me. So you are at awe, subhanallah, and it looks like a small, beautiful, pretty flower, but actually the whole universe is needed for this to be here. It is making tasbih, and as I read its tasbih, I am participating in its tasbih. In my awe, I say, Subhanallah. And then now, the other day I was looking at it, and Subhanallah again, just in case you thought, no, but it is pretty itself. No. Life is not from it. The beauty is not from it, and now it's wilting and it left. It is transient and it's temporary, and it's in its transience, it is also making tasbih. It is saying that it is not from me. He is the source of life. He gives life and he takes it. He gives beauty and he takes it. So I say, Ya Mumit, or you giver of death, you give life and you bring death. Everything is in your hand. So that's very important that we, now my gratitude, my awe, my love for the beauty automatically goes into awe and love for the source of the beauty, for the beauteous one, for al-jameel, the source of all life, of all beauty, of all sustenance, of the provider, the Rabb. So this tasbih is very important that we understand. When we understand the tasbih of the creation, we make tasbih with them, we participate with them, and that's the only way we can avoid shirk. That's why we say, Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yushrikun. We make tasbih from shirk. Because if there is no true tasbih, if I don't make tasbih, then I am saying it's from God, but actually it feels to me that it's from it. My love, my heart is attached to the beautiful flower itself. That is the path to shirk. And my knowledge of God doesn't increase. My love of God doesn't increase. I cannot, I'm not making shahada. I cannot confirm the message of the Quran, and I cannot confirm akhirah. I cannot confirm that that aspect of things that look to the beautiful, eternal, beautiful names of God, that look to in eternity, that looks to akhirah. And so my belief in akhirah remains as imitative. There's no certainty. I'm just hoping. Can you see that it's very, very important? And one is just assumptions, and the other one is true shahada. It is shahada. It is iman. It is tasbih. It is organic. From there, everything. It is a means to remembering God. I will remember God when I look at things in that way, inshallah. When I am aware of the tasbih. That's why the surah starts with everything in the heavens and everything on earth makes tasbih. يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ الْمَلِكُ الْقُدُّوسُ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. And then in ayah 2, we are told it is He who sent to the unlettered people a messenger from among the people themselves to convey his ayat to them, to purify them and teach them the book and wisdom, whereas before they were in manifest error. وَإِن كَانُوا مِن قَبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. They were in clear dalal. So when we understand these ayat, then inshallah, number 10, 9, 10, 11 make more sense. And also when we confirm that everything makes tasbih, and we are inshallah able to join them in the tasbih, then they won't distract us from remembering God. Instead, we will see that they are ayat, that they actually reminds us. They remind us of Him. They remind us of our Rabb. They reflect to us and tell us about His Asma al-Husna, about His beautiful names, such as in this ayah, for instance, it is Al-Malik al-Quddus al-Aziz al-Hakim, the sovereign, the holy, the almighty, the wise, and other names as well. And in the second ayah, we have the 4 names of God in ayah 1, and then in the second ayah, we have 4 functions of the Prophet ﷺ that correspond to those 4 names. So the Prophet, he's sent to convey his ayat to them, to purify them, to teach them the book, and to teach them wisdom. So it means the Prophet's function is to reflect the names of God and to make them accessible to us. Meaning, just as God manifests His names in His creation, His beautiful names in His creation, He also manifests His beautiful names through His Prophet, in the sense that it is through his prophet that he conveys his ayat to us and purifies us and teaches us the book and wisdom. And this is important to realize because belief in the prophets is a pillar of Iman. Belief in the messengers of God is a pillar of Iman. So it's not believing in a list of prophets, it's believing in who the prophets are. What are their functions? So where is the prophet in my life? And therefore, how do I follow the prophet? How to follow his path. So it is the prophet who teaches us how everything makes tasbih. He teaches us the ayat. He teaches us to purify ourselves. How to purify us from misguidance, from shirki beliefs, from the resulting misperceptions that distort the reality and distort the beautiful names of God. Instead of giving it to God, we give it to other things. And the more we receive the ayat, and the more we are purified, the more we are made to read the book and realize how everything is glorifying God. Then, inshallah, we will start glorifying him through our activities in the world, and we will seek help. We will glorifying him not only through our ibadah, the worship, but everything else will acquire a sense of worship through our ubudiyah. And then we will do everything with that awareness that we are seeking help and blessings from him. And so our gratitude will be redirected to him. And that's when we will be open to receive the wisdom. Because remember, hikmah, we are told when we, I think we did study Surah Luqman together. In Surah Luqman, Surah 31, in Ayah 12, we are told, we granted wisdom unto Luqman, be grateful unto God. So what is wisdom? وَلَقَدْ أَتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ أَنِ اشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ. So to be grateful is wisdom. To be grateful to God, that is wisdom. And you can understand it, that is wisdom. It is the result of wisdom, and it is also the seed to true wisdom. When we live with gratitude to God, the more our gratitude is focused, goes to God alone from our heart. We are conscious, we are making shahada, is truly to him. Then we get to know him. The more we know who God is and who we are, that is wisdom. And we are told in this ayah, we granted wisdom unto Luqman, be grateful unto God, for he who is grateful unto God is but grateful for the good of his own self, whereas he who chooses to be ungrateful, truly God is self-sufficient, ever to be praised. Whether you praise him or not, he is the one to be praised in truth, in reality. And we also know that we're told in the Quran that wisdom is great good. وَمَنْ أُوتِيَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. God grants wisdom unto whom he wills, and whoever is granted wisdom has indeed been granted abundant good, but none bears this in mind except those who are endowed with insight. So most people are not aware that wisdom is such a great good. And so wisdom is taught to us by the Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam. And then, inshallah, we'll be able to confirm and experience that truly God is the sovereign, the holy, the almighty, the wise. I didn't explain that although most of these names of God, we've seen them in the past, except the holy, because I think it appears only twice or something in the Quran, here in Surah Al-Hashr, I think. But the others, we all seen them many times, especially Al-Aziz, Al-Hakim, because this pair appears together a lot in the Quran. So when we reflect on ayah 1 and 2 of Surah Al-Jumu'ah, Surah 62, and inshallah we understand their message and we confirm it by witnessing the tasbihat, applying it to our life, and glorifying God together with everything else, by means of everything else. We can only glorify God by means of his creation. Then we will seek prosperity and blessings from him, because then there will be only one alternative. There won't be other alternatives. The other alternatives, we will be aware that they were only our own delusions, our own misperceptions, misunderstanding. And that's wisdom. Wisdom is to be aware of the reality and be cleaned and purified from those delusions of shirk, of living in disconnection of who we truly are as abd and who God is as our Rabb. Then we will get to know God as our Rabb, as the sovereign, as the holy, the almighty, the wise, the provider, and you can add the list of the beautiful names. Then we will long to find his countenance in everything. We will seek his countenance in everything. We'll desire, as we are told in the Quran, they desire, the believers who desire his countenance. And then we will, inshallah, yearn to stand in his presence during the salat and renew our conscious gratitude and our worship to him. Then, when the call for prayer or the call for the Friday prayer, as the topic is in this particular surah, comes, and we are told to hurry and strive towards the remembrance of God, we will do so with joy. We will leave everything and strive to stand in his presence with awe and adoration and gratitude. And when we stay there, when we do that, the prayer will also, like that iman, that belief, through the action of going to the remembrance of God, of obeying the injunction, of acting accordingly, it is going to strengthen our belief. It's going to ground it. It's going to increase our experience of awe before God, because we're already coming with it. So each time it's going to be more and more. It's like, it's going to be nurtured more and more. And the more we do the inner work of getting acquainted with the ayat in the Quran and in the world and with their messages, and the more we purify ourselves, which is inner and outer work, the more it becomes easier and easier for us to act accordingly, to live accordingly, to live as we claim we believe, as we are told in Surah As-Saf 61, the surah that comes right before Jumu'ah. It starts with, everything in the heavens and earth glorifies God. He's the Almighty, the Wise. O you who have believed, why do you say one thing and do another? It is most hateful with God that you say what you do not do. So inshallah, it will be easier the more we do the inner work and intend to act on it, And here it's like not only strive, but hurry and strive, then we will, inshallah, it will be made easy unto us to take outer action according to our inner beliefs. So we start with inner work and inner action, our dua to establish iman in our heart and know God with his beautiful names. And then there is the other aspect of iman. So one is the ihsan that looks to outer actions. And we start, as iman increases and our imani awareness increases, acting outwardly in the name of God, the provider, the Rabb, will start getting easier and easier. It's like a momentum. It works for everything. It's like if someone never cooks, then the more you cook, the quicker and the better you are at it. The more you drive, the better you are at it. The more you practice iman, the better you are at it. So it's not something that's happening only out there, and it's not something that's happening only inside. It's both. Like, it's not only outer actions, but it's not only inner actions either. They have to go hand in hand. And then we, as the iman increases, then it will become easy to start acting accordingly in the name of God, and we start looking forward to the salat, for instance, and to the other ibadah as well, because it's an opportunity to meet the beloved. We know God, he is our beloved, we know him, we love his beautiful names, we have a personal tangent connection, relationship with him. He is our Rabb, we are his ibad. I am his abd means I am his the beneficiary of all his blessings. My seeing and hearing and breathing and everything are the result of his grace right here and now. And I am the witness to this endless blessings. So when I'm called to meet him, leave everything and go and meet him. So accordingly, dhikrullah, remembering God, has inner and outer dimension. And so it is with tasbih also, glorifying God, and all the other ibadat. There is something that I am aware, it's an awareness and knowing, a believing, and it is an acting, because if it is a knowing, we will act accordingly. Otherwise, something is not going right here. So the inner aspect looks to ubudiyah and the outer to ibadah. And everything has the potential to be ibadah when it is done with the consciousness as a habit, with ubudiyah. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ teaches us. His sunnah looks to Islam, iman, and ihsan, all of them. It looks to ubudiyah and to ibadah, to inner belief and to outer rituals, for instance, and other outer things. And these two aspects, the inner and the outer, the two aspects of everything, of ibadah and of in this case of the sunnah, coexist together like the two sides of a coin. They can't be one without the other. Sunnah is not do this, don't do that, or do this way. But yes, do it this way, but there is another very crucial element, which is your inner awareness, your inner attitude, your inner perception, intention, everything. That is usually in our society is usually, neglected. It is not taught. Everyone assumes that you have it, somehow you figure it out yourself. And it is the most important, because the outer things, you don't need even maybe a teacher. You can get it in a book, it is described, you follow, or a video, you see someone do it once and you learn it, for instance, how to pray. But the the spirit of the prayer, the remembering of God, is not something you do in one day. It is a whole life learning. It is a tarbiyah that needs, that's what the teaching of the Prophet does. That's the teaching of, in ayah 2, where we're told, what does he do? He conveys his ayat, he purifies them, teaches them the book and wisdom. And this teaching of the book and the wisdom is repeated many times in the Quran. So these two aspects strengthen each other, they nurture each other, and that's why the importance of salat being imad ad-din, for instance, the pillar of religion, for instance. It's not only because of the outer form of the salat, it's because also of its, and more so, of its spirit, the dhikrullah, the remembrance of God. That's why it said, wala dhikrullahi akbar. And the remembrance of God is even greater because it nurtures that awareness, that remembrance of who God is and therefore who we are. Because unless I'm aware of who I am, I will never know God as my Rabb. And here, when I'm talking about sunnah, I do not mean sunnah as you do the fard, for instance, prayer, and then you do the sunnah, 2 rak'ahs or 4 rak'ahs. No, I'm using it here, sunnah, as the path of the Prophet, following the Prophet, meaning the fard salat, the 5 prescribed prayers, are doing them is following the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Believing in God is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. In that sense, I'm not using it in the fiqhi sense. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه ربنا آمنا بما أنزلت واتبعنا الرسول فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Jazakallah khair. Are there any comments or questions at this time? Please don't be shy.
Okay. I'm gonna share something. When you were saying, Mina, Jazakallah khair, when you're saying like if you really have this in your heart, then you would be happy to go to salah. You'll be like rushing, seeking it with happiness. And as you said that, subhanallah, the memory that came right away to me was my father, rahmatullah alayhi, on Jumu'a. Like the times that I see him singing as he is perfuming himself, and he would have like a white jalabiya, and like was always before Jumu'ah, he would be in the best mood. He's singing, he looks in the mirror, he calls upon, would go and see if he can get his grandchildren. But he would be so happy. Like it always amazed me, like, why is he so happy? Especially in Egypt, like we did not go to pray Jumu'ah with him as girls. So he would be going, but he would be always happy going and always very happy coming back. The same thing he would do on Eid day, like that aspect of totally happy and enjoying. I did not see him a lot with that, but with Jumu'ahs and with prayers and with and when we went for Umrah, like these were times where you could see, like he never preached us about God, but you could see him, as soon as you said happy to go, I could see him right away, totally happy, like as if he's going to receive the most prestigious honors, like the same way he would dress to go to a place where he's gonna be honored and praised and given love. That's the way he would prepare for his salah. Rahmatullah alayhi.
MashaAllah, rahimahullah. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah.
Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment or ask a question? Okay, if not,
Assalamu alaikum.
oh, okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to share, I think, a takeaway for me. So I, kind of hearing the lecture, I started reflecting that there's a few prayers that I find myself, I wait till the last minute, especially when I'm at work, but I think it's just a general habit. And I think it's been that way for a while. And I just started thinking the idea of like this prosperity. And I like, Dr. Mina, how you said something about the soul being tired. So the idea of like, going to prayer to like feed the soul, like taking that time out to go feed the soul. And so it can kind of be re-energized or relit, and then to go out and to like, spread that light or to keep seeking. That really resonated with me. And I think like an intention that I made right when I was hearing that is I was like, I am going to make an intention to like those one or two prayers, which I kind of always wait till the last minute, to do them on time. And I'm just going to observe and kind of watch and see how that feels, and see if, I notice anything. So just wanted to share that. I think for the next 2 weeks, and inshallah beyond that too, I'm gonna practice that and observe.
And please let us know. But from my personal experience, when I started that, it's just fabulous. It feels like you're so light. It's inshallah you will share your feelings with us.
Inshallah, I'm looking forward to it now.
And just I think the intention changes, the entire intention to be present and see it as a moment where we see that all the mess and the anxiety feeding nature of our day can really dissipate when we realize that all of this mess, whether it's certainly
it starts shifting.
Yeah,
when we have that intention to pray in time, everything starts shifting, mashallah.
And also the messiness, like to intend that all the mess, I don't necessarily mean that every day is a mess, but I mean like the world at times when we forget looks like a mess. The politicians are crazy and there are all kinds of people around, and then this needs to be done and that needs to be done, and you don't even know where this is going, or what you think you're getting is actually so passing. All of that is extremely tiring for the soul, and to intend that now I'm going to have a word with my Creator who is eternal, and I'm going to make intention to be present there. It really does change. As you said, if we don't intend, then it feels long. But when we intend that way, it actually can be nurturing, inshallah. Inshallah. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to share more takeaways? I like the idea of takeaway. I like, even if there wasn't a question or a comment, like what is the takeaway? So I hope that, Jazakallah khair, Sister Zara, I hope other people will. And I'm going to share something very quickly about the word presence that you've been using. Today I met with my beautiful friends, Mariam from Turkey and Ziba from India, and they were reflecting on the word hudur, which is presence. And you guys can correct me, but Mariam was saying huzur is used as a way of like a peace to the heart, like in Turkish. Huzurli, I forgot the word that she actually used, but
huzur or huzurlu.
Huzurlu, which means like peace in the heart. Is that right?
Like huzur is finding peace, and huzurlu is being at peace.
So this is the presence. So as if like the word presence is bringing peace to the heart. And then Ziba was saying that the word huzur in Hindi, like is, or Urdu is, it's the name of the Prophet. So they would say Huzur Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, like that he's present. So it was interesting that the word for peace to the heart was presence, and in, like, you know, in the Indian, it was, or the Hindi, it was the name of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because he was always in a state of presence. So subhanallah. So any more takeaways?
And what is it in Arabic, in addition to being in the present?
Hudud means presence.
Does it have any connotations with other?
No, just presence. Like, you know, I remember in the classroom when the teacher will bring out the hudur, we call hudur, the hudur sheet, to see who's present and who's absent. So basically presence.
I am present, hadira, or hadir.
And when someone calls you and you respectfully answer them, you will say hadir, like I'm coming with presence, like
I am present
just,
with
okay,
you.
I'm present with you. I'm totally present, like I'm in your presence. I'm totally in this moment, like I'm not distracted.
It has, of course, different connotations, but in particular, for instance, in particular fields. But now we're sharing what it means in daily life, in daily language.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
So I'd just like to share, I guess, something just happened from like last week. I remember, I guess, sharing about, you know, not approaching my teachers and professors about prayer time, and then ending up combining prayers or missing a prayer. So this week I've been observing at a school as a part of my coursework. And after the discussion, I actually went to the administrator during Dhuhr time, and I asked for a space. I looked in, you know, the conference rooms and any other rooms, and everything was taken. And I saw that there was 2 offices behind the desk that she was sitting at that were empty. So I asked, you know, if there was a space that I could pray at, and her first response was like, oh, there is no space, like maybe you can pray in the bathroom. And you know, the first inclination that I had after hearing that was like just kind of this, I don't know if it was like a hurt or a defense, but I was reminded of something I believe Isra had mentioned about, like, just, you know, even if it's like something that's perceived as negative, to take it as like, oh, transient being. So I didn't think about it too much, but then immediately, subhanAllah, she had looked behind her and she's like, oh, you know, these offices. And I was actually eyeing those offices, and I was going to ask her about them. But immediately after she said that, she was like, oh, there's these offices available. Would you like to pray here? And then she asked like how long it would take. I said it's not going to take long. And so alhamdulillah, I did my Dhuhr prayers, and then, you know, this entire week I've been able to use that office to pray. And then also, like other conference rooms, just like subhanAllah, just becomes available where I don't even have to use the office room. So, yeah, just thought I would share that, you know, even though it was kind of out of my comfort zone to go and ask, usually what happened in the past is that, like, I would actually forget that the Dhuhr time would be passing. But, you know, maybe that concept of that Fili dua that Dr. Yamina had mentioned today, now it's like I feel like that reminder comes to me, that I'm reminded that, oh, okay, like it's 1:30 or it's 2, you know, I you know, like my Lord is calling me. And so it becomes so much more easier, so much more graceful to just step out, you know, do wudu. I make sure I do wudu in the morning, as Dr. Yamina, you had suggested. and it's becoming like so much more easier to make salah. And I'm intending, inshallah, that once I go back to the university after my observations, to actually also ask my professors about giving some time, or making some accommodation for, inshallah, me to pray. So just thought I would share that. Jazakallah khair.
Oh, thank you for sharing, mashallah. You are seeking, inshallah, seeking from God's blessings. And you also realize that the lady was not being personal. She was not even aware of what was behind her.
And you passed the test, because the most terrifying thing happened. I had never heard in my entire life somebody, I mean, my life is short, but I have been in this country for 2 decades, and I have asked for praying in all kinds of places, and nobody ever suggested me to pray in the bathroom. I have prayed in the bathrooms or myself, but nobody ever that I asked told me that I could pray in a bathroom. So you got the worst, in a way, like a bit, not worst, but a difficult answer. And what you, subhanallah, and it was tailored to you, and you passed that test. You're like, you know what, whatever she says, I'm not gonna take it personally. I want to pray. And then I don't know, I thought it was very interesting that it just happened to you that way. So it's tailored to you, and you passed it. You said, I have my focus. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I think like what you said, Isra, resonated, because I think often during these times, like I find this like defensiveness, or this kind of like, I feel upset, but this time, like I actually like thought about it. I stopped and I was like, you know what? It's okay. Like I gave her the benefit of the doubt that I think maybe she wasn't thinking through, because I saw that she was like going back and she was like, oh, okay, well, like she looked back and she's like, oh, these offices were available. So as you and Dr. Yamina were saying, that maybe she just didn't realize what she said. But subhanAllah, like in the past, I would have reacted with anger or frustration, like, oh my gosh, she said this, like how could she? But it was more like I was just calm, and I was like, even if she wasn't going to mention the offices, I was going to be like, I'm going to ask her about it, because no one's there, and what's the worst that she can say? She can say no.
Exactly, mashallah. This is all part of sabr and patience and resilience. It's nice, alhamdulillah. Thank you for
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I know it's getting late, but hopefully I'm not going to take too long. I just wanted to say that I really, appreciate many points, but also the reflection in the second ayah, that was really beautiful. And thank you for highlighting the stages, the functions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It made it, put a little bit more, structure for me, structuring, the way the reciting of the ayah, conveying the message and purification and teaching of the book, and ultimately wisdom. And I also thought, so it's going to be a long way to reach wisdom, but that was beautiful. Thank you.
Just start with gratitude, intend to be grateful to God, and that will also shorter the path to inshallah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Nertila. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right. It's a beautiful name, mashallah.
Nertila. I think I like to liken it to the word tertila, but just with an N.
So we don't pronounce the R, like Netila. Netila, like that?
Nertila, like tertila. We say tertila, yeah.
Like tertila, but nertila.
Tertila, but nertila.
Now I'm getting it. Jazakallah khair for the clarification, nertila. So now I won't forget it. So like with the stages of like with what Dr. Amina was speaking about gratitude, and with your comment, something, again, came to my mind or heart, and that is like the difference between a grateful guest, because we are all honored guests, and an entitled guest, like someone who comes to your home and acts entitled, like, he does not see that you're the one who's cooking and cleaning and making his bed, and he is like, I don't like this food, I need different food, the temperature of the water, like, they're entitled, they're not thanking, and they're entitled. Like, how, I don't know if you have people in your life that you can imagine, but this is like,
they're not aware they are guests.
They're not guests, they're usually family. Or your children, but anyway, so a lot of times, like the concept of a grateful guest, the host wants to do more for, whether the guest is your family, your children, or real like guests, from outside those spaces. But that entitled guest who refuses to be grateful for all what's happening around them, is how we act, like, so that totally repulsive figure in our head is we. That is very sad, becomes us.
The gratitude to God is our acknowledging our being abd, meaning our being the recipient of his blessings. And so the more we are grateful to God and we use the words for it and remember it, the more we are acknowledging our situation, acknowledging that he is our Rabb. And so it makes the other cycle of learning from the Prophet and witnessing the tasbihat and participating in them much easier, because there will be no resistance within us, because we are already practicing that gratitude. At least our intention is to practice it. That the depth of that gratitude is going to deepen as we witness the tasbihat, but they go together. The inner reflection and the outer acting and intending and acting accordingly, inshallah. So it's not like I'll wait until I get it and then I will practice it. No, as we are, it's an unending process anyway to get it internally. But outwardly, we will, inshallah, we intend to be grateful to God alone, and we say the words and we write them down and we remember and we say, whatever the level of my awareness is, to that level, I will act accordingly. Inshallah.
Okay, so inshallah, on that note, we shall stop our discussion tonight. Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Yamina, and Jazakumullah khair, everyone, for joining us tonight. Inshallah, we'll continue our journey in the Quran next week. And in the meantime, let's keep each other in dua. Assalamu alaikum.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Fi amanillah.
Fi amanillah.